Oh, I'm sorry. I am currently getting the page up to be able to see any comments that might come in. And processing. My camera is blurry. I'm sorry if this is making noise. Let's see. Okay, so uh, I was at my library today at the local university library, and there were a number of books on interesting topics that I would consider relevant to some of the issues that we're facing today, like the Masons founding their role in founding the country. I'm sorry, I'm going to end up being like pretty quiet today. I'm just kind of want to hang out with you guys, read comments. So if you leave any comments, I'm gonna check them out. See how this is listening. Okay, so all right. I find it interesting because I was just thinking about this before I got out of my car. I find it interesting that how like clear the battle lines became, like how basically like good and evil were becoming extraordinarily apparent in what it was to be good and what it was to be evil. And I guess it really kind of broke down to like the good or the sympathetic people were the ones who were willing to, say, question or search for reality, have better conceptions of what reality was, who search for the truth, who search for knowledge. And then deviating from that, you had the people that were not questioning or not examining their life and not examining reality or the universe. And these people ended up being sort of like, I guess you could call them neutral, but it just was not good behavior. A lot of what was wrong had to do with people that were not willing to bring to question. Obviously there was a huge campaign against it, but that's what I'm saying. We're seeing a very plain dichotomy between like good and evil. And then the evil people, or what was considered evil behavior, were those individuals who ultimately kind of like had misconceptions of reality, right? And they acted on their misconceptions, or they basically kind of like thought they knew the way of things or thought they knew reality, and what they were acting on was a misconception of reality. And so the danger, I think, that all living beings are presented with is ultimately not understanding things correctly, and that there is a certain virtue in curiosity. I mean, yes, curiosity, they say, kill the cat, but ultimately, when you think about a curious person, you think of somebody that you ultimately sympathize with. You think of almost like a childlike innocence. Somebody. I'm not. There's a million people that fall in this category. I'm not trying to like. There's probably some sort of a term for like trying to beef up yourself or something like that, but that's just not true. What I mean to say is that there is ultimately like a, excuse-moi, that there is ultimately some sort of correlation between having, because I think, either Plato or Socrates or whatever, or I don't know, said that the unexamined life is not worth living. And that's a little, that's, somebody could take that pretty far and like think that they're okay in killing people that don't examine their lives, but that is, don't go into that. He's just saying that it is essentially like it is the almost like a duty of a living being. Well, I don't know how to put it best. Let me think about that real quick. That basically our lives, we achieve meaning in our lives by sort of examining our lives. And it's strange how by doing that, or examining reality, or having questions, you're actually not only answering that question, but your behavior begins to incline towards good behavior. Because that's essentially what you're doing. Like, as you come up with conceptions of, build better conceptions of reality, you're coming to influence the way you conduct yourself in the world. And a lot of people, or whatever, that there's basically this problem in ethics and moral philosophy, which is like you cannot derive an ought from an is. So that basically, like, given a scientific examination of things, at no point will you sort of derive like this law or this like moral philosophy. You'll never be able to be like, I'm scientifically examining things and that means that I ought to do something. Instead, it seems to be phenomenal of examination. So what I sort of say is like, as you come to say grasp, or as you come to have philosophical wisdom, or as you come to have the correct intellectual position, it will influence your behavior. It's just like function, basically. So like, if you don't know there's a wall there, like if there's a wall there and you want to get to your house, then you're going to go around the wall. But if you don't know there's a wall there, you're going to run into the wall. So you may never come to sort of understand, you may never come to sort of derive the ought from the is. Like maybe if you knew everything, you would be able to do that, but that's the point. Like, it's dangerous to think you know everything. But as you come to understand reality, you begin to sort of see things that you see and respect and whatever things, to have the proper, or you begin to have like, there's all kinds of like philosophers that so I'm not like coming up with stuff on the fly, but there are things like higher forms of pleasure. Like people say, like it's sort of like a higher form of pleasure to come up with some kind of like a mathematical formula, or like listening to a certain like beautiful, like basically beautiful piece of art or music, and or to come upon some kind of scientific thing. And you might even say that technology influences our behavior in such a way as to make our behavior better. And I don't know if that's, a lot of technology gets a bad rap, and I think it has to do with the conspiracy, to be honest with you. But in general, think about it. I mean, you can talk to somebody, you can argue with somebody over the phone in a private way, feasibly, and not have to deal with that sort of being like in a group setting, which would influence the way the argument goes, or person to person, and that could end up, say, like becoming violent, or I don't know, but I will say that I think I think that I think that behavior becomes better the more, say, wise you become. I mean, that's what wise means. So, wisdom is an interesting term because wisdom really has to do with not just knowing things, but then knowing how to act as a result of knowing the things that you know. And so, wisdom is truly like the concept of wisdom is a lot of that gap bridging, deriving an ought from an is. So let's take a look at your comments if there be any. Nope. No big newsworthy stuff. Okay. Newsworthy stuff. Let's see here. So there is a resistance to the bad guys, and luckily it looks like some of that resistance is coming out of the military, coming out of the CIA, the NSA possibly, and that's good to see. Possibly coming out of the police departments too. In fact, I was just talking to a police officer related to me, and the officer was essentially saying that they received a memo, or his chief or whatever received a memo saying that they were going to be holding drills. It was going to involve the military, or like they were going to be doing drills essentially with the federal government, and it didn't give a date or anything. And that ultimately that freaked him out and it freaked the it freaked a lot of the cops out too. Even the head cops, and they didn't like the idea of it. I mean, to such an extent, it was like they were afraid for their own lives, like not just what they were going to do to other people, but to what was going to happen to them, because the implications are ultimately that it's going to affect them too at some point, which is good, very good thinking skills, basically. Okay, so interesting book that came out talking about how, oh, that's irrelevant. Let's see. I want to apologize to anybody who may have been, say, because I was ragging on that girl, Jana Winter or something like that. And then, like, I was like, because, at first my mind's thinking, like, oh my gosh, you're involved, you're shill, you're involved in the cover-up, how dare you? And there is a certain sense in which I don't like not resisting whatsoever, because this goes back to the unexamined life thing, you know what I mean? Like, you can't bow down and take it. I mean, like, I suppose it's difficult, but I mean, there are, once you, like, if you're somebody that, like, knew, I suspect what happened was people that knew things didn't just know things, but then ultimately, like, knew things that would cause anybody to fight no matter what. And obviously I'm referring to, like, ritual sacrificing of children, torture, what ends up happening down the road as a result of compliance, those kind of things probably cause people to sort of resist. And that was ultimately the PR scheme, sort of like saying, like the implications. Like, I don't understand how people don't sort of pick up on implications. I mean, when you are trading, like, people talk about national debt, or they talk about like I need to basically get loans to do things, or there is, you know, there are some people who are born into positions of power, and that there are some people who are not. I mean, the implications are what need to be like made or thought about. And a lot of people, I guess, there is a certain problem. Like there's like a social negative stimulus towards people who um, openly question things, because there's like an intelligence insecurity basically, where when you ask something, it's like, oh, look how stupid that person is. It was really unfortunate to see them do that to those pageant contestants. You know what I mean? Like, don't um, make fun of people for being stupid, or like saying something that you think is, they're not stupid, but saying something that you think is stupid. And I guess I'm biting my tongue when I say that, because you know ultimately I am quite aggravated by the amount of lack of drawing implications. So I guess what I'm saying is that I think people don't draw or don't question things because they're embarrassed, and they would be embarrassed because they're afraid of looking stupid. But I guess I'm just fortunate. I think it was like in the culture of the 80s that, no, I mean, like in the 80s and before that, being smart was so uncool, basically. So I don't know if that's like turned around now or something like that, but I'd say back, you know, I'd say in the 90s back, it was very uncool to be smart. Like you were, it's just so funny. Like I don't even know if they genuinely believed that too. Like nobody wanted to be seen as being smart, and that may have just been in certain groups. I mean, certain schools and stuff like that. But but yeah, it was a negative stereotype. Like you didn't really want to be called smart, and even when people were smart, they basically played like they were stupid. Like they would score well on their tests if that is like a sign of being smart or something like that. But then ultimately, they would conduct themselves as though they were hiding the fact that they were, say, knowledgeable of things or scoring well on their tests. It was very odd. But like I say, that might have only been in certain groups of people, because essentially it is rude to be a know-it-all. It is rude to be smart. It is rude when somebody is in the room who is less, it's like pretentious, essentially. So when somebody comes in the room and you use big words or you talk about certain concepts, it isolates them and they feel stupid and they can't. So it's essentially kind of rude to be like super smart or something like that. But I can understand like perhaps why it was like that. But I don't know. There's probably some more profound things to sort of build off of this concept, but I'm not going to worry about it. Anyway, it's just and you wonder if you're like looking through the lens of the engineered for shittiness society. So in other words, like, are you supposed to be thrown into a group of a bunch of other random kids with no parental supervision called a public school, and then like base your behavior off of that? That's a really kind of odd thing that was not there, I don't think, in the way that it is now. I mean, for the majority of your childhood and your day. In fact, if anything, it's like perhaps the most poor way to sort of structure behavior, because um, children learning from other children. It's like learning from the most immature. I don't know. Like if somebody really came up with like ways to dumb down the people or ways to control the people, they may have actually come up with something like that. But I don't know. Like I don't think so. Or maybe it was just a mistake that we would do something like that. But education's kind of interesting. I really appreciate public education. Like I really appreciate the teachers that I got to know, the children or the kids that I got to grow up with, and I was always very quiet and like isolated and half the size of everybody. But I ultimately like appreciate it basically. I don't know how to say it, and I don't know what all the permutations are. Like maybe in certain schools that were like say private schools or Catholic schools or et cetera schools, it's kind of like way different. But mine was just a public school with a small town community, and all kinds of different people, and such drama. Such, when I say drama, I say in a good way. Like I mean, like this was not so big that almost everybody was had their own story. Almost everybody was, because I only graduated with like 99 kids, you know. But obviously there was more than that as I was going through the school. But uh, I mean, everybody kind of had, was forced into the limelight in some sense, and I never consciously like built my reputation. I think a lot of the say more socially aware kids were more concerned with like building and protecting a reputation, but I was just trying to survive basically. I was just trying to not get I was trying not to get I was trying not to do something embarrassing, trying not to get caught in a situation that would cause me physical harm. So, there was no, like, the emotional harm was already, 100%. I really appreciate, like, at least my upbringing, at which point I just have, like, I was in a nothing to lose kind of state. I was not, say, unpopular. I guess I was just kind of like nice and tried to. Everyone knew I was smart, even when I didn't make good grades and stuff. It was like they knew I was intelligent or they knew I was smart. They would come to me for like answers, and like even if I didn't know the questions, I'd be like, I really don't know. But there was always a sense in which everyone just kind of assumed I was smart, and even the people that were assumed to be stupid were making better grades than me. And I think even some of my teachers were just sort of like giving me good grades, like even though they knew I didn't deserve them, and it was really weird. And I remember even from a young state of mind, I was kind of like, why am I going to school? Like, what is the point of school? And I was like, it just seems to be kind of like crappy. It's like all I do is I go here and I essentially get negatively stimulated throughout my day, and I end up having to do stuff that makes no sense to do, and if I don't do it or I don't do it correctly, then I get like extremely negatively stimulated by the people that I love, my family, my parents, whatever. It made no sense to me when I was a kid, so I don't know. That's right. William says, Mox News, they want us to believe there's another 9/11 coming. CIA agent there. That's interesting. All right. Will says, you're a loner like the rest of us weirdo internet users. Haha. That's true. That sort of behavior is on the rise, though. I mean, like, I think it was like really kind of like total abandonment of my reputation and devil may care when I was like, oh my, I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna start making videos. Like, I know that the implications are bad. Like, they're like bad. It's kind of like you're a quote unquote loser and you're uh, like what sort of shitty life must you have to like put videos on the internet about conspiracy theories? But I was just like, I knew the problem, and I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna do it. And I don't know, I just really kind of like, but it happened before that. I mean, basically what ended up happening was, I know this is like a super egotistical broadcast where I'm just talking about myself, but I kind of like talk about myself in this way of essentially trying to like reach out to people who may be going through what I'm going through, or maybe just sort of convert people into what I find to be reasonable positions. So anyway, like I basically had massive like anxiety. Basically, I mean, I guess I was kind of forced into it. I was just like, what is going on? What is this world? These are typical questions. What is it to live? What is it to die? And et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't run to drugs, and I didn't run to. I guess I could. I didn't even have the option of running to like other people. And I was obviously like majoring in philosophy, so I had access to sort of like attempts to answer these questions. And it just really concerned me. And then like I just started learning what the answer was, and I sort of started having this social disconnect where I was like, okay, society seems to be totally insane. like it was a problem. Like, I was actually like meeting people, and no matter how much I tried to like to give the illusion that I was a normal person, where I was like, hi, how are you, or hi, how are you, when I shit, I just said my real first name. I'll have to delete this damn broadcast. Okay. Anyway, I ultimately, yeah, I'm gonna end up deleting this one, so that sucks. Damn. Okay. Anyway, like I said, like I would say those things, and what they saw, what they could tell, I mean, because they're not stupid, is like, it was as if I were saying to them, hi, you're an imbecile, you're immoral, like I give off this air, I guess, of like, because I'm so obsessed with the way things are and the way things work, that I think it causes people to also question that, and maybe it's an unpleasant thing for them or something. And so people don't like me because it feels like work to like even contemplate the way that I think or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure you do. You have my phone number, so you can look it up. Let's see. Killop says, "Hey there. Been a while. How are you been? How you been? What's your thoughts on the Obama issues, global terror threat?" I really don't know. I feel like William kind of put that out there for us. So William says, Fox News, CIA agent BAER, quote, they want us to believe there's another 9/11 coming. So if I had to speculate, and I don't want to like screw anything up, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand. I just feel, never mind. I just feel like that's kind of like the answer. So what? So the question of like, are they worried a terror attack's coming? The question becomes, are they the ones that's going to do the terror attack? And so, or do they just need some reason to get all of the embassies out of the Middle East, all the Americans out of the Middle East? But I will say it's kind of interesting that the day before that happened, Israel committed a huge human rights violation by bombing a weapons depot warehouse that had chemical weapons, and like over 500 people, probably innocent people, got basically killed in a horrible way in Syria. And it honestly looked like a tactical nuclear bomb. So, I don't know. So maybe that happens, and I guess I'll go ahead and think about it. So if Israel does that, and then all of the embassies empty out of the U.S., I mean, all of the U.S. embassies empty out of the Middle East. That's what they were worried about, some sort of retaliation on America as a result of that thing happening. The mainstream media is silent on that. Um, where's that going? I need to start losing weight. I'm looking at a recording of myself right now. There's like a delay when I look at the screen for your comments. I saw pinned on GOP that Ariel Sharon may have passed away yesterday, and that might have been a rumor. Apparently he was comatose and stuff for a few years, maybe for a certain amount of time. I guess he might have passed away, and I mean, the guy was pretty racist. He says, I mean, allegedly, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, 25th of March 2001, quoted in the BBC News Online. Supposedly he says, Israel may have the right to put others on trial, but certainly no one has the right to put the Jewish people and the state of Israel on trial. That's like so... That's somebody who unfortunately has been either disinformed or, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, how does somebody... It's like a parrot, basically. Maybe they've got used to thinking that sort of way, that sort of racist way. It's such a problem to, like, think you understand things when you don't. I mean, at least examine your claim. You know? What does that even mean? What are the implications? Do you like that? Is that the kind of... You know, I don't know. It's just... Certainly, it has to negatively stimulate you to some extent to make... To give everyone like this, I don't know, like this ideal audience. You know, because I don't know, this is interesting, we'll talk about this stuff. So I came up with this sort of theory of behavior called the mental audience or something like that, wherein all of us have a sort of like theater. Our lives are on a theater. We're like being displayed in this way, and everyone that we care about, yeah, our mental audience, and everyone that we care about is kind of sitting in the audience. And the way we conduct ourselves and the way we act and what we like about our lives consists of those people in that audience. And this is anyone from like people you respect in your local community to celebrities or characters, you know, characters even, you know, like Bugs Bunny or whatever. And they're all back there in our mental audience. And we care and we think about how they think about what we're doing. And yeah, you're going to make some people mad, but ultimately what embarrasses you or whatever, it's kind of like our rational mind acts off of the expectations of that audience. And I don't know how I got into this, but I guess if I were to now backtrack, I guess like Ariel Sharon may have unfortunately had this audience of like-minded people who, you know, because I can understand basically, like you grow up with a mom or a dad who constantly drills into your mind. That's the problem, right? It's a whole world religion of racism, basically. So they're going to say these things, and what ends up happening over time, you know, some of this stuff is like very decreed. Like I can understand how somebody who got into like a mystical aspect of Judaism, because essentially you've got this like religion and this tribe basically maybe even has a nice philosophical perspective on things, coming to a monotheistic belief system. And it's kind of like a relationship between God and a certain group of people. And when you extrapolate, it's what we call slippery sloping something. If you slippery slope that, or you cascade that scenario, or you know, go into like a mystical aspect of what that is, it basically becomes a very racist thing. So it's like, wait, there's something where our people, our race, as opposed to other people, and God have this relationship, which is like the entire meaning of existence, and like we must be God, basically. We must be gods, and the other people are not. And the way we express that is to like really kind of like destroy and like mutilate and hurt other people. And so, and it takes a lot of gusto to defy that audience, right? So let's say Ariel Sharon had an audience full of people who, after millennia of having this belief system, racist doctrine belief system, would have to like defy that audience in order to, say, come to a better position or a more rational position. And you know, a lot of conspiracy theorists had to do exactly that. But I bet you'll find a pretty good correlation between people who are conspiracy theorists or who became conspiracy theorists, and something in their life made them just generally distrusting, you know, of other people. Because I think there's some kind of quote like the problem with the world, or like war, you know, war and whatever results from obedience and not from disobedience. And essentially, you know, when you think about disobedience, you think of something negative, but you know, nobody should, you know, should expect to trust somebody you don't know. You know, like at least trust the people you know. Like, yeah, you can be obedient, you can be trusting, but at least reserve that sort of privilege to people that you know really well. You know, it's not like I'm saying anything profound or anything like that. All right. Osama bin Laden died in December 2001. Fact. Yep. Bin Laden was never wanted for anything to do with 9/11. Fact. Yep. Israel is Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda is Israel. Yep, that could be where things are going to head. So, when hasn't Israel committed a human rights violation? Israel today is everything Germany is alleged to have been. Boom, hit the nail on the head. Yep. And guess what? Now they're trying to make Islam out to be everything Israel has always been. Some sort of like a vast conspiracy kind of thing that's trying to bring about the Mahdi. Yeah, right. Are they engineering that? Certainly. So, Lafayette says, that's what I thought, Israeli tactical nukes. William Martin says, in today's world, there isn't one pure race. We have all been interbred with German, Irish, Scots-Irish, and others. Jews are European, not Semitic, like the Palestinians. Lived there for hundreds of years. I agree with you. I agree with you. Let's see. William Martin, anyone can become Jewish. It isn't a bloodline, as the nation of Israel was a spiritual nation, not a physical nation. Never was a physical one either. Yeah. Oh. Oh yeah. Can't believe I said my name on this broadcast. Now I'm going to have to delete it once I'm done. So you guys are... HSBC closing diplomatic accounts. HSBC, this is on Drudge actually, bank reportedly asked more than 40 diplomatic missions to close their accounts as part of a program to reduce business risks. So that's pretty interesting. Kind of watching the world like turn around upside down. Chicken Bob Schwa. Let's see. Oh, you guys should be very, at least, intrigued by, say, having been a part of this process. For better or worse, at least intrigued. Just like the philosopher said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Hey, at least you can say that you you tried to at least connect with the reality. Let's see, most interesting. Ooh, USAtoday.com. FBI allowed informants to commit 5,600 crimes. Crimes. Okay, these are not necessarily operations. So the informant is always getting bailed out. Really scary. Obviously, if you get away with something, you start, and it's probably much higher than that. Even the article says that's just the, I don't know. Actually, I forgot, but that's just the stuff that they're willing to admit. And I mean, what it is that it's funding an insurgency, right? Rebels against the law of the land. And the federal government's just sort of like giving them a get out of jail free card, and then they go and they apparently not necessarily do any good for the country. That's debatable, but I mean, they're already criminals, so what are you doing? At least go and get an upstanding person to portray themselves as a bad guy. Like, don't go to the criminal and get him off. And there's something wrong with that, Like, if you want to infiltrate. But don't work with the criminals, dude. Like, otherwise, what's the point of the law? At least let the criminal do his time, and then go to the criminal. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's just real fishy. So it's rumored, and I have to say that because that's what they say, but I don't know, I think he might have said this. John F. Kennedy says, quote, "There's a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman, and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, I intend to expose this plot. Where he said that, when he said that, I don't know. But I do find it interesting. There's a plot in this country to slave every man, woman, and child. I think he talks about using the office of presidency. And by God, I've never seen a more fitting president than the one that we currently supposedly have for that enslavement process. Martin Luther King says, quote, "I've told the kids in the ghettos that violence won't solve their problems, but then they ask me, and rightly so, Why does the government use massive doses of violence to bring about the change it wants in the world? It's amazing any kid said that. He said, Martin Luther King says, after this, I knew that I could no longer speak against the violence in the ghettos without also speaking against the violence of my government. Martin Luther King Jr. Assuming he said that, I have to oh, people aren't lying to me. And then I said, very much true. People hate on conspiracy theorists for this train of thought. But isn't it obvious yet? Guilt lies completely at the top. It trickles down in the form of not being willing to see it or do something to change it. So people look at conspiracy theorists and they think we have some sort of problem assuming responsibility or something like that. And it's kind of like, how backwards is that? The conspiracy theorist is at the very least assuming tons of responsibility and saying, I'm not going to allow somebody else to tell me what conclusions I need to be drawing. Instead, I'm going to go out of my way and question the official story. I'm going to question the narrative, and I'm going to try to do something about it. So I don't know. Well, let's just say that. About 10 minutes left in the broadcast. I mean, something's got to be going on. Whenever you see, because, how do conspiracy theorists reconcile the fact that the mainstream media shills, and yet the mainstream media is doing things that we agree with, right? So what you begin to sort of formulate is the damage just that bad? The mainstream media has to report on it. Or is there a rebellion going on, and we're watching an invisible sort of war take place? And I guess that's the official right there, which is good guys who were in positions of government or power, basically the whole white hat sort of thing, is a reality now. So there's all these white hats kind of going against the cabal, and we're watching that play out. That's most certainly what's going on. So, oh, cramping. Ugh. Oh, yeah. Looks like it froze up on me there. Did it freeze up for you guys? Yeah. Oh, man, I will say that I'm just getting really sick and tired of the current paradigm. Would love to introduce a paradigm shift. Would love to sort of escape the bondage that comes in the form of society and I not getting along, basically. And because when you think about it, things are, it's almost weird how enormously backwards everything is. So, just like when I was going down that list of ironic twists, everything is super duper backwards. And so I'm not offended whatsoever to be thought of as anti-social or weird or you know, whatever. I don't actually conduct myself like that in public. I don't think. I can groove with people, and a lot of people would probably think that I'm, a very, pretty decent people person. Somebody who's, uh, like they can tell that I'm different, but that this is me talking about myself again. I mean, these things are important, though. I think when I talk about myself, I'm kind of like talking about what it's like to be in this backwards world, knowing things. That would include people that are listening, people that are conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. And anyway, I can't remember what I was talking about. Anyway, let's talk about what we need to do in this last 5 minutes. So what we need to do is not just do the research necessary, but production, right? So we need to like produce things that cause conversion, because the primary goal at this point is bolster the white hats, bolster the good guys, bolster the resistance. And that means basically counter propaganda, which is luckily, I don't know how, but all of a sudden my game making program is no longer glitching like a mother, and I'm able to actually work on it without stuff like cramping up and freezing up on me. So I want to knock that sucker out. I know, like, no matter what's going to happen, when I knock that sucker out and that kind of gets out there, that'll be fun. People will turn it on, turn to it, get a little education going on, you know. Won't be toned down either. It'll be like raw, like Jones says, raw veritas, raw truth. And, but fair. It's not going to be like, it's not going to cause people to get violent. It'll cause them to start thinking, though. It's really attractive the way it's done. It's done too. It's got like this sort of like it's got like a very positive sort of stimulus thing. Like the characters, you actually feel like you're in love with the characters and stuff. And I'm actually saying, I mean, like when I made it, I wanted people to like feel. I wanted them to like feel like they could really, because the original Deus Ex really kind of did that. They kind of like made you fall in love with the characters you were running into, because you kept seeing them throughout the game in random ways. And I wanted to like capture that again. So okay. Got about 2 minutes left. Call it a night, and then I unfortunately have to delete the video. Maybe not if it gets conveniently edited out. But I'm not worried about, say, the shills knowing who I am. They already know, because they have access to all that stuff. I'm worried about like random nutcase people knowing who I am, and that would be the problem essentially. Got to throw them off. Oh yeah. Let's see if there's any more comments. Mm, no? Oh, I don't want to have to delete it. But I have to, I guess. A very good night to everybody. I will see you in time.